Each of his fingers possessed a unique ability: the divine index finger that crushed all things, the divine middle finger of judgment, the divine ring finger with healing powers. His name was the One God. And how did he get this strong? Just by crushing ants in his mobile game. And it all began on an ordinary day, when he discovered that a strange new game had appeared on his phone. The moment he tapped on the treasure chest icon, it burst open dramatically. The screen displayed the words, "Welcome to Evil God Creator." Moments later, an ant crawled onto the screen, followed by a line of incomprehensible text. Instead of questioning reality like a sane person, he figured he would just tap randomly and see what happened. To his surprise, the ant was instantly crushed under his finger. A coin popped out of the screen, and the phone calmly announced, "Life of number 1 terminated. You have obtained 1 divine coin. Congratulations. You are 1 step closer to becoming a great evil god who pursues absolute power." He stared at the phone in confusion, wondering if he had just awakened some kind of hunter ability. If this had happened 20 years ago, he would have checked himself straight into a psychiatric hospital without hesitation. Unfortunately for his mental health, times had changed. 20 years ago, spatial rifts had opened across the world, and countless monsters had poured out like an interdimensional infestation. Humanity had nearly gone extinct. But everything changed when humans awakened supernatural abilities. The energy obtained from hunting monsters became humanity's last hope of survival. Hunters were classified from the godlike SS rank all the way down to the embarrassing G rank. Once a hunter's rank was determined, changing it was almost impossible. Shortly after this realization, he arrived at the ability testing center to have his powers evaluated. The staff member smiled politely and announced, "Congratulations, Mr. One God. You possess an ability constitution." His heart nearly exploded with excitement. His mind immediately filled with delusions of becoming a legendary hunter surrounded by admirers, fans, and probably several people willing to forgive his personality. In silent desperation, he prayed to anything listening. Just give him D rank. Hell, even F rank would be acceptable. Anything but E rank. The machine beeped. The staff member glanced at the result and spoke again. "Your rank is G rank." The word hit him like a brick to the face. G rank. The absolute bottom of the food chain. His ability was no different from that of an ordinary civilian. The staff member confirmed it with professional indifference, and then asked if he would like to register as a hunter for a fee of 8,000. He briefly considered it before realizing he couldn't even access a dungeon. Paying that fee would be like setting money on fire for fun, so he declined and left. That evening, he returned home irritated and mentally exhausted. Just as he was about to sleep, the phone beside him suddenly rang, snapping him awake instantly. Annoyed and wide-eyed, he picked it up and began crushing ants again, venting his frustration like a deranged god with anger issues. Before he knew it, divine coins were scattered all over the floor like loose change after a bar fight. The next morning, when he woke up, all the coins had merged into a small pile. The number displayed had changed from 1 to 100. The phone chimed again. "Congratulations, unnamed god. You have met the conditions to unlock the divine shop. Would you like to open it?" Without hesitation, he tapped yes. Opening the shop required 100 coins, and he spent them instantly without thinking twice. 1 coin on his bed physically vanished, confirming this bullshit was very real. However, once the shop opened, all the text was written in strange characters he couldn't understand. Even worse, every item inside cost 1 billion coins. He spent the entire night grinding ants like a lunatic and only managed to save up 300 coins. The prices were so absurd they felt personally insulting. Then the shop refreshed, and suddenly the top item only required 100 coins. Shrugging, he casually tapped it. A notification appeared. "You have obtained the exclusive skill, Blind God's Eye." He stared at the name in disbelief. Blind God? What kind of dumbass skill was that? Was it the eye of a blind person? What use could that possibly be? The answer came immediately. Everything went pitch black. He couldn't see a damn thing. Panic set in as he groped around for his phone, only to slam his toe into the corner of a table. The pain made him cry out like the universe had personally told him, "Fuck you." Then, just as suddenly, his vision returned. Terrified, he picked up his phone again, only to realize that he could now read the previously incomprehensible text in the shop. Inside were countless skills and items. After scrolling for a while, he found a universal ability, called Divine Index Finger, that crushes all things, classified as a growth-type skill. He tapped to acquire it. The phone confirmed the purchase. He stared at his finger skeptically, wondering what the hell this divine finger actually did. Almost immediately, the air conditioner behind him turned on by itself. He pointed at it and said, "Divine Index Finger." It turned off. He pointed at the computer, and it powered on. In the end, he realized the horrifying truth. His god-tier ability was essentially a glorified remote control. After discovering that his so-called divine power was basically a glorified remote control, he returned to the only thing that brought him peace: crushing ants. Black ants popped like bubble wrap under his finger, divine coins dropping out one after another. Then suddenly, a red ant appeared on the screen. This one was different. He tapped it once. Miss. He tapped again. Miss again. No matter how fast or how aggressively he tapped, the red ant dodged everything with infuriating precision. It moved like it had foresight, reflexes, and an ego problem. Realizing this had to be some kind of boss, he started tapping like a crackhead trying to win a claw machine. His finger cramped, his patience shattered. The red ant, the smug little bastard, escaped. Furious, he could only vent his rage by massacring more black ants. The phone coldly displayed a notification stating that his actions had exceeded 800, and that only 200 more actions remained before he obtained the evil god title. By this point, he was mentally and physically drained. He collapsed onto his bed and immediately passed out. While he slept, the phone activated Blind God's Eye automatically, unlocking an exclusive ability. That night, he found himself inside what looked like a movie theater. On the massive screen, the red ant appeared again, now walking with a cane like some tragic war veteran. The red ant limped toward a cave entrance and shouted to the ants inside that it had found where their food supply had fled to, but that it had been attacked by a terrifying god of the dark tribe. It warned them that escaping was the limit of its strength and that they needed to strike first. The ants inside burst out laughing, mocking it mercilessly. They called it a coward, saying a mere dark tribe god was nothing but a joke, and suggested it should have just died there instead of coming back to whine like a bitch. Suddenly, an elderly ant entered the cave, silencing everyone. Stroking his whiskers like a cliché anime elder, he declared that he sensed the presence of the dark god. This land belonged to the great emperor, and the existence of an evil god here was unacceptable. They would execute it immediately. The old ant placed his hand on the red ant's head, releasing a surge of energy that instantly healed its wounds. He ordered the red ant to lead the way, announcing that he would personally subjugate the so-called evil spirit. The ant army roared in unison, screaming about delivering death to the evil god. At that exact moment, he woke up. He dismissed the whole thing as a weirdly vivid dream about ants, because clearly that was the most reasonable explanation. His phone chimed. The red ant appeared on the screen again. His fighting spirit surged, and he prepared to crush it once and for all. Then things escalated real fast. Multiple red ants appeared, surrounding the screen. The one in the center shouted, "Nature's judgment upon great evil." A blue light shot out from the phone and sliced open his forehead, drawing blood. On the other side of reality, the ant army charged their power, chanting about subjugating an evil god and praising their sage. Before he could fully process what the hell was happening, a red light crashed down in the ant world, wiping out countless ants in an instant. On his end, he completely lost his shit and started smashing his phone like it had personally ruined his life. He slammed it so hard that smoke started coming out of it. Only after nearly destroying his beloved phone did he regain his senses. The screen was shattered, the room was filled with divine coins, and the phone calmly displayed a message. "Your actions have reached 1,000. Congratulations. You have obtained the evil god title Cruel Slaughterer." He stared at the screen in disbelief. Cruel Slaughterer? This was bullshit. He was a law-abiding citizen who paid his taxes and minded his own damn business. That title didn't fit him at all. As the coins began merging together, a ring formed from them. He picked it up and examined it. The ring emitted a faint fragrance that instantly refreshed his mind and cleared his thoughts. Curious, he slipped it onto his pinky finger. The moment he did, energy surged through his entire body. All fatigue vanished as if he had just been reborn. The phone chimed again and activated Blind God's Eye to appraise the ring. Druid's Ring. Contains the life force of the forest. Enhances rapid growth abilities. With a ring like this, and an appraisal skill that could see through bullshit, he began to wonder if his hunter rank had increased. There was no way someone with gear like this was still G rank. Fueled by blind confidence, he decided to return to the testing center. When he arrived, the staff member looked at him skeptically and reminded him that the error rate of the test was less than 1%. Retesting would cost 580,000. Hearing that number instantly crushed his soul. Reality slapped him back into place, and he apologized, saying he would come back another time. Clearly, the ring had gone to his head. As he sat down on a nearby sofa, Blind God's Eye activated automatically and began appraising people around him without consent. A 30-year-old man with hemorrhoids, a 41-year-old man with kidney deficiency. Then his attention was drawn to a young woman in the distance. Unlike everyone else, her appraisal displayed a name and a strange condition tingling. Confused and curious like an absolute dumbass, he walked toward her. Reaching out, he awkwardly asked if she was experiencing a tingling sensation. The woman stared at him like she was deciding whether to kill him on the spot. Lightning gathered in her hand. She was clearly seconds away from turning him into charcoal. Just as things were about to go catastrophically wrong, His phone rang. He grabbed it and bolted like a guilty man escaping the scene of a crime. After narrowly avoiding being electrocuted into a smoking corpse by the lightning girl, he escaped the testing center in record time. His phone rang again before his heart rate could return to normal. This time it was his sister, ordering him to pick up his niece from the park. He complied, because even newly minted evil gods understood the fear of older sisters. When he arrived, he found his niece waiting, small, adorable, and radiating pure chaos. Looking at her face, he couldn't help but think how someone so demonic as his sister could give birth to something this angelic. Naturally, his hand moved on its own and pinched her cheeks. She immediately exploded in rage, stomping her feet and yelling that she told him not to do that. He knew instantly that this tantrum was going to last at least an hour. At that exact moment, Blind God's eye activated again. The appraisal result appeared clearly. Kai Cheng Yen. Current desire chocolate cone. Without wasting a single second, he suggested they go get ice cream. Her anger evaporated immediately. Her mouth watered. Crisis resolved. They headed straight to an ice cream shop. The clerk greeted them cheerfully as he pulled out a pile of coins to pay. The enthusiasm on the clerk's face vanished instantly. The clerk silently sorted the coins like someone regretting their life choices, then handed over a noticeably smaller than normal chocolate cone. He stared at it, deeply offended by this injustice. That was when his god complex kicked in. Activating the divine index finger, he pointed at the ice cream machine. The machine went absolutely fucking berserk, dispensing ice cream nonstop like it was possessed. His niece hugged the cone like a dragon guarding treasure, refusing to share even a bite. He sighed and accepted his fate. At that moment, the phone chimed ominously. Title activated Cruel Slaughterer. Due to title effects, your combat fortune has greatly increased. The ground began to shake violently. Crimson eyes opened in the sky like reality itself had just woken up angry. A massive horned monster emerged from a spatial rift and immediately began destroying everything in sight. Cars flipped. Buildings cracked. Panic spread instantly. He grabbed his niece and ran like hell. Unfortunately, she tripped over a rock. As he helped her up, the monster loomed right behind him. The creature roared and lunged. With nowhere to escape, he closed his eyes and prepared to get absolutely obliterated. At that moment, lightning tore through the air. The lightning girl from earlier appeared out of nowhere and slammed the monster with a thunder attack. The monster tanked it without a scratch. She fired again. Still nothing. She cursed under her breath, realizing she was completely outmatched. A-rank monsters were on a different level, and even as a B-rank hunter, she couldn't win. She noticed him and his niece behind her and immediately shielded them, shouting for them to run while she held the monster back. Before she could finish speaking, the monster struck again. Her energy faltered. She couldn't activate her power in time. Death was seconds away. Inside her mind, emotions exploded. Rage, regret, and an overwhelming desire for revenge flooded her thoughts. At that exact moment, a voice echoed in her consciousness. Crush all things. Divine index finger. Power surged into her body like a lightning storm breaking loose. Strength beyond anything she had ever felt filled her veins. She unleashed a thunderstorm so violent it tore the battlefield apart. When the dust settled, the monster was subdued. The crowd erupted into cheers, calling her the Thunder Emperor. She stared at her hands in disbelief, unable to understand what had just happened. He approached her with his niece, thanking her sincerely for saving them. She waved it off, relieved they were safe. Later that evening, he stood alone on an overpass, replaying the incident in his mind. That monster hadn't appeared randomly. It came for him. It wanted his divinity. The phone confirmed his suspicion. Trial overcome. Cruel Slaughterer rank elevated by 1 stage. Reward evil god abilities may now be obtained without consuming coins. All of this chaos traced back to one thing. The phone. The thought made him want to throw it into the ocean. Before he could act on that impulse, the phone displayed a new message written in strange characters. In another world, the ant army was invading the Dark Tribe's stronghold. The Dark Tribe's saint was praying desperately for salvation. The phone asked him if he would save the trembling little creature begging for help. He hesitated for half a second, then tapped the screen. The red ant was crushed instantly. The phone asked for his name. He entered it. The one god. The saint pledged herself to him. Immediately, a new title appeared. Good God title obtained Benevolent Savior. Now holding both good and evil god titles, his alignment shifted from evil to neutral. As a reward, he received 100,000 divine coins. Overjoyed, he rushed into the divine shop and purchased a bottle of Growth God's protection. After appraising it and discovering its extremely questionable origin, he shrugged and drank it anyway. Then he drank more. Nothing happened at first. Then everything went dark, and he collapsed. When he regained consciousness, he found himself lying at home, his body feeling strangely refreshed, despite having blacked out like a drunk god. His phone lit up immediately, informing him that due to the increased synchronization rate with Evil God Creator, several systems had been upgraded. Before he could even process what that meant, something brushed against his hand. He looked down and froze. His bed was crawling with ants, not metaphorical ants, not imaginary ants, actual, physical ants, swarming over his sheets like he had personally offended the insect kingdom. He panicked and jumped off the bed, sprinting for the door. It wouldn't open. The ants opened their jaws and began biting him, tiny stabs of pain stacking up until he was hopping around like an idiot performing some kind of cursed ritual. He rushed for the window, forgetting he lived on the 3rd floor. He tried smashing through the glass, only to rebound off it and slam onto the floor. As despair kicked in, rage surged. He activated the divine index finger and crushed dozens of ants instantly. That's when the remaining ants calmly picked up bows and arrows like this, a goddamn medieval siege. Arrows flew. His body was pierced over and over until breathing itself became difficult. Just as everything was fading, his eyes locked onto his lifeline, a can of insecticide sitting nearby. With the last of his strength, he grabbed a lighter and ignited the spray. Fire erupted, incinerating the ant army instantly. This, he realized, was the power of a god. Unfortunately, it was also the power of an idiot. His room caught fire immediately, and his body refused to move. As smoke filled the room, the phone displayed another cheerful notification. A high-ranking evil god offers you a gift. Accepting may lock your alignment to evil. He tapped accept without hesitation. Nothing happened at first. Then the phone informed him that fragments of the silently creeping nightmare's power were infiltrating his abilities. Panic set in. His divine index finger wouldn't activate. Just as he was about to die roasted like an idiot, the window shattered. Lightning crashed through the room. The lightning girl appeared again and dragged him out moments before the flames consumed everything. He woke up in the hospital. His niece immediately demanded proof that he was really her uncle and forced him to say an extremely humiliating password. Before he could recover from that emotional damage, his sister stormed in, screaming about being called a chubby auntie. Before he could even apologize properly, a flower basket mysteriously appeared at the hospital door. Somewhere nearby, the lightning girl stood on a rooftop, watching him thoughtfully like a stalker who hadn't accepted it yet. After recovering, he noticed that the ants were still harassing him in the most disrespectful way possible. The phone notified him that the ant saint and her followers were offering tribute. He accepted, and a glowing stone appeared. Fruit of the world tree. He ate it and immediately regretted it, because it tasted like something that had marinated in an outhouse for 80 years. Still, the warmth that followed healed him completely. As a reward, a new function unlocked a divine grace. He wondered what ants liked, glanced at a nearby bag of sugar, and dumped it as divine blessing. In the ant world, sugar rained from the sky. The ants healed instantly, limbs regenerating, morale skyrocketing. The phone informed him he had gained 101 true believers. Faith generation unlocked. He found this ridiculous but also weirdly satisfying. Shortly after, he visited a second-hand item market to sell something for house repairs. While there, Blind God's eye continued appraising people without consent, exposing frauds and scammers left and right. When 3 shady men attempted to sell fake armor for hundreds of millions, he interfered like an idiot with a justice complex. One of them grabbed him aggressively, demanding accountability. He activated Divine Index Finger. The armor crumbled instantly. The scammers immediately bowed and fled, realizing they had fucked with the wrong person. The shop staff stared at him with awe, assuming he was some reclusive high-ranking hunter. The staff examined it. Magic power value 2. At most a D-rank item. He snatched it back. Blind God's eye whispered. Best given to Sparky nearby. No, not the Sparky from Clash Royale. Sparky was indeed lurking, watching him recover from near death like it was nothing. She thought, could it be a supreme potion? He is just G-rank. How the fuck did he get that? Maybe he is truly high-ranking. Then she scolded herself. Wait, I am acting like a stalker again. He approached her, blushing like a dumbass, shoved the ring into her hand, and said, please accept this. It will help you. Then he bolted. Sparky stood there, bewildered. Later at the testing center, researchers freaked out. Your energy reaches 7,000. Exceptional even among A-rank hunters. Sparky stared at her hands. That ring had casually elevated her to A rank. Nearby S-rank hunters applauded. Sparky's sister, Shang Wei, sneered. Do not get carried away, Shan Li. You are merely A rank. If you act on revenge, I will not forgive you. Sparky thought, sorry sis, I cannot obey. As long as that man helps me exceed my limits, revenge will be mine. Meanwhile, he was asleep, dreaming of the Ant Emperor. The Emperor ordered General Kamakiri to lead 5 million troops to subjugate him. Kamakiri bowed. I obey. He jolted awake, panicked. Shit, this is not just a dream. Last time it was 100,000 ants. Now it is 50 times that. The phone confirmed it. 3 days until invasion. As if that wasn't enough, the silently creeping nightmare contacted him again, asking for human sacrifices. He blocked it instantly. Blind God's eye then projected the image of an ant general, Kamakiri, announcing her intention to sever his head. He tried appraising himself. After nearly popping his eyes out, it finally succeeded. Fragile and timid, he cursed. He sits on his bed in exchange for necessary items. Grant's fire works better with a divine index finger. In reality, it produces flames weaker than a lighter. He is deceived again. He should have discarded it back then. He remembers Growth God's protection. He consumes 200 bottles consecutively. The evil god creator synchronization rate increases to 10%. He polishes his sword 20 times and collapses at his computer desk. Sparky purchases small gifts, hoping to engage him in deeper conversation. She arrives at his door. She rings the doorbell. No one answers despite repeated attempts. Sparky notices the door is not fully closed. She carefully opens it and calls out to see if her boyfriend is home. His room is empty, and now he is a captive in some warehouse. But because he drank 20 times yesterday, the protagonist is still asleep, adrift in a sea of pleasant dreams. His 3 kidnappers watch him in confusion as he laughs to himself. Excellent. He wants them all. He awakens. What is happening? A kidnapping. The rooster headman says mockingly. Impressive that he can sleep in this situation. Blind God's eye displays male human. Special note uses low, grade flame. Male human. Special note underdeveloped muscles. Looking at these descriptions, these are the fraudsters he encountered at the item shop. What do you want? The protagonist asks. The rooster headman says, we seek compensation. Naturally, he ruined our transaction. The protagonist says awkwardly, what should he do? He does not have his phone. The thin man holds up his phone. They brought it for him. Blind God's eye alerts our boy that the ant army is 20 meters from reaching his location. He shouts urgently, "Auntie me quickly," and throw away the phone, but it was too late. Countless ants pour from the phone. They cover the thin man's body instantly. Within 1 second, the ant army devours him completely. The rooster headman and his companion watch in shock. He turns to the protagonist and curses, saying he can control insects. The goon gathers fire in his hand and unleashes flames toward the ant army, burning and consuming everything. The protagonist watches. This is supposed to be a low-grade flame. The rooster headman incinerates the ant army. He turns toward the protagonist menacingly. Now they will settle the account for killing his subordinate. Our boy tenses up. He is done for. Suddenly, the rooster headman stumbles. He collapses. A stone strikes his head. Blood pours from the wound. The protagonist looks down. The ant army has deployed catapults. The large man attempts to escape. The door will not open. The ant army's catapults launch. Blood splatters. The protagonist panics. Even those massive flames cannot eliminate the army. Can he escape this place alive? Had he known they were this formidable, he should have discarded the phone from the beginning. The ant general mocks. Evil God, your subordinates are dead. Now, he will eliminate him immediately and transform him into His Majesty's sustenance. The protagonist's phone chimes. The display reads, activating minor miracle. Lightning strikes. Countless ants are eliminated instantly. Sparky descends majestically before him. He rejoices. The ant general thinks with fury at such contempt for the emperor's army while not acting personally, and to command such a powerful subordinate. That evil god is truly an evil god among evil gods, capable of destroying the empire. The general removes its armor and roars. Today he, Kamakiri, shall perish here, but he will at least eliminate one more of your subordinates. Sparky continues electrocuting them. Protagonist stands behind, grinning foolishly, completely unaware of the approaching danger. The ant general whispers, 1,000 blades that sever all. I am your servant. Grant me your great power. I sacrifice all my subordinates to you. The unaware subordinates shout for the general to take cover. The ant general severs the heads of the remaining ants with one strike. Sparky and protagonist are stunned. After eliminating its subordinates, the ant general emanates overwhelming pressure. Blind God's Eye activates. Kamakiri, female. Special note, Imperial General intends to sever Sparky's head with 1,000 blades. Before protagonist can react, the ant general leaps toward Sparky. Sparky hastily activates her lightning. The ant general splits the lightning. It charges toward Sparky with overwhelming momentum. The blade flashes. Sparky lies in a pool of blood. Rage consumes protagonist's mind. These cursed ants. She saved his life 3 times. A notification appears. You may use divine power to alter a mortal fate. This will consume 100 Zalazar divine coins. Protagonist confirms without hesitation. Golden light fills his eyes. Using divine power to reverse time and alter fate, he returns to the moment the ant general severs the lightning. The ant general charges towards Sparky with overwhelming force. Sparky has no time to react and prepares for death. Protagonist's chains shatter. He stands and pulls Sparky behind him. He glares at the ant general with murderous intent. Sparky observes his fierce display. She thinks he truly is a master. Protagonist shouts, a mere lowly ant. He raises his middle finger under judgment. Divine middle finger. The ant general is obliterated by this strike. Protagonist watches all this with a calm expression while Sparky gazes at him with admiration. He picks up a small knife and asks curiously what it's for. The next moment, he throws the knife away because it's scorching hot. She removes her helmet and excitedly asks if he's the hermit. Then she actually kneels down and begs protagonist to take her as his disciple. With a shocked face, he says he's just the lowest ranked hunter. He only defeated the Ant General thanks to his system. There's no way he can teach her anything. But Sparky still clings to him. Even when he's watching wholesome content, Sparky watches along with him. Protagonist asks her speechlessly how long she plans to stay at his place. Sparky says she'll leave when he accepts her as his disciple. Protagonist tells her helplessly that he's just a G rank hunter. Sparky says that just the ring he gave her made her much stronger. Since he gave her something so precious, she wants a chance to make amends. Afterwards, Sparky carries bags of cement and starts repairing his house. Before long, his previously dilapidated room becomes exquisitely renovated by Sparky. Then, protagonist plans to find something to eat with Sparky, but just then, an emergency call comes in. Sparky says there won't be time for a meal. She puts on her helmet and prepares to leave. Protagonist takes out a bottle of Growth God's protection for her to bring along. After thanking him, Sparky flies off into the distance. Moments later, he arrives at a restaurant to eat. The restaurant is playing news. The host announces that the S-rank monster Tra has appeared. Fortunately, a hunter arrived at the scene in time, but buying the citizens time to escape is already her limit. The hunter currently facing Drake alone is B-rank hunter Thunder Empress. Meanwhile, after rescuing a citizen, Sparky stays behind to cover the retreat, facing an S-rank monster. Even Sparky feels uncertain, but there's no time to think. The monster's attack is already upon her. Sparky jumps and unleashes her lightning power. After being struck by this attack, Tri falls silent. The on-site host commentates that Hunter Thunder Empress has defeated Trey. The crowd erupts in cheers. Sparky also happily thinks she's defeated the S-rank monster. But the next moment, a tentacle strikes. With one blow, it sends Sparky flying. This strike directly causes Sparky to lose her combat ability. At this moment, Sparky sees the Growth God's protection beside her. Meanwhile, Tra is charging straight toward the crowd. The next moment, after drinking the potion, Sparky is back at full health. Her entire body surges with lightning power that can tear through anything. Then, she unleashes 1 billion volts. This strike directly tears the S-rank monster apart. Afterward, a reporter interviews Sparky. Sparky excitedly says to the camera that she did it, and that it is all thanks to the potion her teacher gave her. This video already has 2 million views. A celebrity like this is actually eating noodles at his place. The protagonist tells her that she should probably go home, or her family will worry. Sparky says bitterly that no one will worry about her. The protagonist comforts her, saying that what parents would not worry about such a beautiful daughter. Sparky says dejectedly that her parents both died in the Abyss Falling Dragon incident. The Abyss Falling Dragon was incredibly powerful. Humanity suffered millions of casualties to kill it. The protagonist immediately covers his mouth in shame. Then, he tells her to eat his portion of noodles with black bean sauce as well. Sparky immediately beams with joy. At this moment, his phone displays a notification. You have fulfilled the other party's affection and trust values. If the other party says the next key word, you can activate faith. Keyword to activate faith: believe in the one God. The protagonist thinks dismissively that this is not some girl-raising game, but then he thinks again, will activating faith give him lots of divine coins like it did with the saint? Who knows when the ant army will attack again? Either way, the more divine coins, the better. Then, he asks his future wife if she can repeat a phrase after him. It is believe in the one God. After saying this, he kneels on the ground and says shamefully that it is too forced after all. The protagonist apologizes for saying such strange things. With no hesitation, the beauty says she believes in the one God like a cute puppy. The next moment, the protagonist's phone notifies him that faith has been successfully generated. Congratulations. Song Miri is your first follower on Earth. The skill sharing option has been generated. You can borrow your believer's power. He immediately says furiously that this damn game is not giving him any coins, and that he will uninstall it right now. Sparky looks at him with confusion. At this moment, a portal appears behind Sparky. Many ants emerge from it. They are carrying treasure chests, wanting to make peace with the protagonist. Unaware of this, the protagonist wants to test whether he can use Lightning Storm. Then, he raises his hand and activates skill sharing. The next moment, he actually unleashes Lightning Storm. Instantly, the massive energy directly rips off his roof. This strike also electrocutes the ant delegation into ashes. Sparky looks at him with an excited expression. Teacher, so you can use lightning too. You are really amazing. Meanwhile, he wants to cry, but he has no tears. His house was just repaired, and his neighbors scouted that the protagonist should let them live peacefully. On the other side, in the ant world, after the ant emperor learns that his delegation was annihilated by the protagonist, he immediately sends out all his elite forces in fury, vowing to eliminate the protagonist. Meanwhile, he is currently watching Sparky run. Before long, Sparky completes 100 laps. The protagonist hands her a bottle of Growth God's protection. To him, it is just a drink, but it is effective for Sparky. Since he has decided to take her as his disciple, he must do something for her, but he can only give her these potions. At this point, Sparky asks what to do next. He tells her to do squats first. Then, he thinks of of using the blind god's eye to appraise her. Maybe it can tell him how to conduct training. So, he begins appraising Sparky. But the next moment, the system notifies him that he has reached the inner mind of the target. The protagonist arrives at an extremely empty place. Then, a blinding light appears before his eyes. A massive lightning tiger, bound tightly by iron chains, appears before him. Sparky's true nature is S-rank, sealed for 10 years. So, Sparky is an S-rank hunter. Back then, the divine index finger that crushes all things briefly unsealed her. In other words, breaking those chains will release all her power. Then, he attacks the chains with the divine index finger, but he can only break a small portion at a time, so he has to give up for now. Moments later, he bids farewell to Sparky. Then, the protagonist returns home, looking at the messy house. He is quite troubled. At this moment, his phone rings. Silently creeping nightmare is looking at him mournfully. All-slaying heavenly blade is looking at him resentfully. He thinks to himself, is this guy the owner of that fruit knife? But all-slaying heavenly blade says his sword is not some mere fruit knife, but a divine blade capable of slaying gods. The protagonist expresses disbelief at this. Wait, can these guys actually read his thoughts? These damn stalkers have now become two. Silently creeping nightmare requests to be unblocked. All-slaying heavenly blade requests the return of his divine sword. Watching this scene, the protagonist becomes furious. He nearly lost his life to obtain the divine sword. All-slaying heavenly blade proposes that if he returns the divine sword, he will give him back the offering from the ant delegation, 2 million divine coins. The protagonist curses angrily that he is truly despicable, flaunting stolen money. Silently creeping nightmare scoffs at this, stating that if he hands over the divine sword to it, it will pay 10 million divine coins. The protagonist is immediately tempted. With 10 million, he can purchase suitable lower-tier omnipotence or items, and buy many potions for Sparky. All-slaying heavenly blade feels very uneasy about this proposal. Seeing his appearance, silently creeping nightmare mocks him as a beggar. All-slaying heavenly blade is angered by this and proposes to grant him his authority. Then, all-slaying heavenly blade demonstrates his authority zenith of the sword. He says that using his authority, no master will be his match. He agrees with this. Throughout history, the sword has been every man's aspiration. Silently creeping nightmare laughs mockingly, while demanding that he should accept its authority rose that blooms at night. It says that using its authority, he can subdue enemies effortlessly. The protagonist immediately devises a plan. Do either of you want to add anything more to your bids? Moments later, the protagonist obtains zenith of the sword, 2 million divine coins, and 3 uses of the all-slaying heavenly blade treasury, plus rose that blooms at night. He thinks to himself that the all-slaying heavenly blade treasury can only be used 3 times, so he needs to use it sparingly. Then, the protagonist wants to try the other 2 abilities. He sits on the ground and shouts, "Rose that blooms at night," but nothing happens. His phone notifies him that rose that blooms at night can only be activated when the owner is asleep. He shouts speechlessly that it activates after he falls asleep. So how is he supposed to know what ability this is? He is a fool for believing the stalker's words. Then, the protagonist uses zenith of the sword, but still nothing happens. This scene angers him enough to cause constipation for 3 years. The next moment, his phone notifies him that zenith of the sword is activated. Then, the protagonist uncontrollably mutters that he is going to cut everything down. The small knife in his hand radiates evil power. Then, the protagonist uncontrollably licks the small knife and runs toward the restaurant next door. After arriving, he frantically helps the restaurant chop 100,000 green onions. By evening, he returns home exhausted. The protagonist mutters, "What kind of terrible zenith of the sword randomly controls people?" Fortunately, nothing major happens. Before long, he falls into a deep sleep. Moments later, the ant army appears on his rooftop. Seeing him asleep, they charge toward him. At this moment, a rose actually grows from his chest. The rose opens its enormous mouth and devours all the ant forces. Then, it closes its mouth. The mother mosquito exclaims in shock that it is the nightmare flower. 3,000 years ago, it devoured 90% of the continent's population and was called the sinful calamity god, the apostle of the silently creeping nightmare, the nightmare flower. The mother mosquito says calmly not to fear. Today will surely go down in the Blood Clan's history. Then she charges toward him. Seeing this, the other ants also begin their assault, but their attacks have no effect on the rose. In the blink of an eye, the rose devours all the ants. Seeing this, the mother mosquito roars that although she cannot kill the evil god, she will at least make the calamity god's apostle, the monster flower, accompany her in death. Then she unleashes her strongest strike, but the rose devours her ultimate move in a single bite. The mother mosquito watches the scene in disbelief. Then the rose devours her in one bite. When the protagonist wakes up the next day, he only feels extremely bloated. He groggily picks up his phone. It displays that the saint and her followers are desperately requesting aid. He quickly activates the blind god's eye to see what is happening. The saint and her followers have been poisoned by the bee clan. He thinks to himself, did you poke a beehive trying to get honey? He opens his computer, wanting to search how to treat ant poisoning. His phone notifies him that due to the one god's concern for the believer's earnest plea, the miracle option has been activated. For believers, miracles are one of the meanings of a god's existence. According to his miracle orientation, believers will either reveal revere him more or fear him more. Activating a healing miracle requires 100,000 divine coins. He clicks confirm without hesitation. Part of the fruit of the world tree that the one god absorbed will be used as material for the miracle. They should be fine now. After doing this, he suddenly feels very sleepy. In the blink of an eye, he falls back asleep. His phone notifies him that the benevolent god title, Benevolent Savior, has risen from E rank to D rank. The one god's alignment has changed from evil to neutral. Several benevolent gods, especially Endless Abundance, are beginning to notice him. On the other side, in the ant world, the saint and her people all have ashen faces. They are all praying for a miracle. The next moment, a raindrop falls. Immediately, countless raindrops follow, and the deadly poison on the ants is washed away by the rain. The saint rises and shouts that the one god has saved them once again. Now, they must repay the god with the tribe's most sincere trust. They will create offerings to sacrifice to the god. After an unknown amount of time, he wakes up groggy. Sparky is actually at his place. She says the training time passed and he did not show up, so she came to check. Then she asks what the statue on the table is. The protagonist looks up. The statue of the one god was made by the dark tribe with a grateful heart, imitating the one god. Its feature is that it is extremely ugly. The protagonist says speechlessly that he does not know what that hideous thing is, but Sparky says the statue is just like him, looking more handsome the more you look at it. Then she asks if she can take the statue. The protagonist tells her to do as she pleases. After sending Sparky away, he prepares to watch some wholesome content, but his phone notifies him that the world tree sapling is sick and will wither in 24 hours. He hastily takes out Growth God's protection, but it does not work. The world tree is the fruit that healed him when he was injured. In other words, if he cures it, he can sell its fruit. He searches through the divine shop for quite a while and finally finds an item Tears of Endless Abundance. Only those certified as good people by the goddess can use it. Purchasing it will generate a quest. Moments later, he arrives on the street picking up cigarette butts. To save the world tree, he actually has to do this kind of thing. After picking for a long time, his goodwill only increases by 10%. He still needs 90% more to complete the quest. Suddenly, a voice calls out, asking what he is doing on his turf. The protagonist turns around to see a very muscular homeless man. He thinks to himself that he has heard homeless people are very sensitive about their territory. He quickly pulls out a $1 bill and hands it to him. But seeing this, the homeless man actually shouts angrily that he dares to give charity to Choi Gang-san. Choi Gang-san. The protagonist remembers that he is an S-rank hunter who started as a sanitation worker. Choi Gang-san snatches the dollar bill and says that since it is his sincerity, he will accept it. He looks at his phone puzzled, thinking that he clearly gave charity to someone, so why has his goodwill not increased? He looks at Choi Gang-san drinking alcohol. He actually gave charity to that kind of drunkard. No wonder his goodwill did not increase. The protagonist calls out dissatisfied grandpa, and Choi Gang-san immediately shouts angrily, asking why he called him grandpa. He quickly takes out a plastic bag and says quietly, asking him to please put the bottle here and that he will take care of it, calling him big brother. Hearing him call him big brother, Choi Gang-san immediately beams with joy. Just then, an alarm sounds in the distance. A monster has appeared. Protagonist immediately decides to make a run for it, but Choi Gang-san swiftly grabs him. Then, with one leap, he takes flight. After coming to his senses, he looks down. He nearly dies of fright on the spot. Before long, they fly to a factory building. Meanwhile, protagonist has already lost consciousness. When Choi Gang-san releases his grip, he collapses to the ground. Before them stands a massive toad monster. Choi Gang-san mutters that tonight's drinking snack will be toad legs. After saying this, he charges toward the toad. At this moment, protagonist's system notifies him that it has detected killing intent threatening the authority owner. Then, the nightmare flower emerges from his body. The nightmare flower opens its enormous mouth and bites toward both the toad monster and Choi Gang-san. In the blink of an eye, the nightmare flower swallows them both in a single bite. Meanwhile, in his daze, protagonist arrives at a forest. He stands up, only to discover a person wearing white clothes standing before him. He steps forward and asks, stuttering, where this is. That person removes their hat and says that he has returned, his great and merciful God. As he stands stunned, cracks suddenly appear before his eyes. Then he returns to reality. He immediately sees Choi Gang-sen lying on the ground, covered in filth. Choi Gang-sen cries out for his mother, saying he's scared because a huge flower ate him. Good grief, why does it smell so bad? Did he fall into an outhouse? Protagonist mutters. Then protagonist's phone notifies him that he has defeated the evil god's subordinate, contributed to world peace, and exceeded the goodwill quest. As a reward, he is given the miraculous item, Tears of Endless Abundance. The tears effect activates to heal the sick world tree sapling. He immediately beams with joy. He can sell the world tree fruit and become wealthy. Congratulations on successfully reviving saving the world tree. He has laid the foundation for the Dark Tribe's revival. To thank him, the members of the Dark Tribe have additionally offered a statue of the one god. After sending Choi Gangsan to the hospital, he returns home. Looking at the statue on the table, he is speechless. Where does this thing even resemble him? His phone notifies him that because the statue resembles him, the empathy rate between him and the ants in the evil god creator's world has risen to 10%. At this moment, a message pops up on his phone. Our great and merciful one god. He looks at his phone, never imagining he would one day be messaging with ants. Then another message appears, begging him to save their poor tribe members, dying Dark Tribe members in a special situation after being attacked by magical beasts. Protagonist looks at the ants lying on the ground. He immediately shouts angrily, asking who did this. He tells them to take him to find those magical beasts. He will crush them with his own hands. After hearing his words, the ants immediately cry tears of emotion. Then he tells them to lead the way. Perhaps because they are ants, they move very slowly. Finally, the ants stop and gaze ahead in terror. He immediately zooms in on his phone to see what is happening. When he sees clearly, he tenses up. It is actually a dense swarm of cockroaches. Immediately, protagonist turns around and flees at full speed. The ants leading the way also panic at the sight of the cockroaches, desperate to escape. However, the saintess tells them not to panic. She points behind them and shouts that the one god who protects the tribe has always been with them. But when she turns around, she sees him running away. The saintess cannot believe what she is witnessing. The other ants see him fleeing and cry out in despair that they have been abandoned by their god and that they are screwed. Moments later, he stares at the cockroach corpses covering the ground. Fortunately, because he hates cockroaches, he had stocked up on plenty of cockroach poison at home. The ants clean up the battlefield, finishing off any cockroaches still clinging to life. He looks at the dejected Saint Tess with confusion. He asks her what is wrong, since they have already driven back the beasts. Upon hearing this, the saintess bursts into tears and cries that she dared to briefly doubt the one god's intentions, that she is unworthy of serving the one god, and begs to be executed. Protagonist is about to comfort her when his phone displays a notification. The message states that he has met the conditions to generate an exclusive divine power, divine thumb of multiplication. He immediately clicks to obtain it. Looking at the overly dramatic description, it is as embarrassingly pretentious as always. Just as he is about to test this ability, his online manager sends a message asking to meet in person. But when he arrives at the location, he discovers that the person is actually a man. He is left speechless. He decides to freeload a meal and then make his escape. However, the man keeps staring at him and shouts at protagonist to work hard on his manhwa, saying that as a manager, protagonist has full potential but is wasting it. Protagonist stammers, trying to figure out how to deceive him. Suddenly, his phone rings. The screen shows that another group of beasts is attacking the Dark Tribe, asking if he wants to multiply the Dark Tribe ants to drive them away. He immediately selects multiply. The man notices that he is playing a game, stands up, and slaps him hard across the face. Meanwhile, in the ant world, the ants stand ready in formation below. The saintess stands on a high platform with both hands raised, shouting that the Great One God will soon eliminate all the beasts. Shortly after, his phone displays that he has successfully defeated the Destruction God's beast and earned 300 million divine coins. At this moment, he walks alone on the street. After a struggle, he has successfully protected his dignity. His phone notifies him that Endless Abundance has offered to sponsor him as a special reward for his ranking as a benevolent savior. The one god can freely choose any ability, with all costs covered by Endless Abundance. In that case, he naturally chooses the most expensive option. He selects Heaven and Earth Creation, an exclusive divine power of the supermoon god, with a price tag of 1 followed by 100,000 zeros. However, the phone notifies him that the one god is far from meeting the requirements to use Heaven and Earth Creation to adapt to the one god's level. Heaven and Earth Creation has been partially adjusted and is now changed to a one-time use of false Heaven and Earth Creation. The world undergoes certain changes. That night, everyone stares at the sky in shock. A second moon has appeared beside the original moon. In a different place, a man was trembling with fear. In front of him, a naked man was standing amid piles of bloody corpses. The Tarzan look-alike guy asks if the Lightning Emperor was the one causing trouble for the guild master. The man confirms it with a twisted look. The perverted Tarzan declares that he will toy with her under the beautiful yellow moon. If you're excited for the next part, leave a comment and I'll do my best to bring it to you as soon as possible.